In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include the FDA covering up problems that they found at Moderna's manufacturing plant, the facility that's used to make one of the substances for their jab. Also, America's debt continues to grow out of control. And you won't believe how much more borrowing the U.S. Treasury has done just over the past few weeks. The Department of Homeland Security teams up with woke universities in an effort to censor American speech they don't like, and Jimmy Kimmel goes scorched earth after people begin speculating he'll be one of the names on the new Jeffrey Epstein court records about to be publicly released. But before we get started, press the like button, subscribe, share the video with a friend. All of that helps out with the YouTube algorithm, helping to have these videos recommended to more people across the platform. Massive speculation and angst has been brewing after we learned that new redacted court filings showing the names of 177 Jeffrey Epstein clients, friends, and associates are going to be released. So far, none of the documents have been unsealed yet by the court. Once they are, we're going to make a video breaking it all down. But in the meantime, rampant speculation has started making its way around social media. On X, the hashtag Epstein Island, for instance, has hundreds of thousands of posts already. Same thing with the hashtag Epstein client list. Well, in the wake of all this anticipation, Jimmy Kimmel is now threatening to take Aaron Rodgers to court after the Jets quarterback said this on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. Watch.
Bring it up, Foxy or somebody back there.
Seats on it.
Bring up Super Bowl 58.
You'll see it.
The emblem, put it on the screen. And then bring up 57 and 56.
Does that have something to do with the Epstein list that came out?
Feels like.
That's supposed to be coming out soon.
Look, this guy's been waiting in his wine cellar.
Yeah.
I've been waiting in my wine cellar for this thing.
A lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't
All right. Obviously, a clip from this particular program was run on Jimmy Kimmel's show whenever Aaron brought up the list, and then Jimmy mocked him for it. Mm-hmm. Aaron has not forgotten about that, but here we are, sitting right in front of that nice bottle of scotch. Mm-hmm. What do you say? I'm waiting to celebrate something.
Oh, yeah.
He's been waiting
That's
for
the one.
You've been waiting for
Hey, I'll tell you what, if that list comes out, I definitely will be popping some sort of bottle.
Hey, you've been calling for it for a few years now. Anyone else notice this? Oh.
Now, the backstory here is actually kind of interesting. Earlier this year, Kimmel called Aaron Rodgers a conspiracy theorist, a tinfoil adder, he said, after Rodgers wondered if the U.S. government UFO disclosures were just a big distraction from the ultimate Epstein revelations, which they're not, by the way. We have some UAP content coming as well. A lot happening in that subject behind the scenes. I just haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. Anyways, here's what Kimmel wrote on X last night. Dear asshole, for the record, I've not met, flown with, visited, or had any contact whatsoever with Epstein, nor will you find my name on any list other than the clearly phony nonsense that soft-brained wackos like yourself can't seem to distinguish from reality. Your reckless words put my family in danger. Keep it up, and we will debate the facts further in court. The U.S. Treasury has been on a borrowing spree over the last 15 years. In 2009, total U.S. debt was only $10.6 trillion. Well, yesterday, we just crossed, wait for it, $34 trillion, folks, with a T. For some context, U.S. debt increased $1 trillion in just the last 3 months, $2 trillion in the last 6 months, and $11 trillion in the past 4 years. The interest expense alone right now, how much it costs the U.S. government to simply service this debt, is now over $1 trillion a year. This is unsustainable, and whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, the system will collapse. A tipping point could be when the dollar loses its reserve currency status, something, by the way, that China and Russia are working overtime to see happen sooner than later. In another story, the FDA has been covering up problems at the Moderna manufacturing plant, the specific facility the company uses to manufacture a particular substance used in their jab cocktail. The Epoch Times uncovered this after receiving a tip, but the FDA's media office refused to release any information about it. So they filed a Freedom of Information request and got back this 6-page document. It's an FDA Form 483, which is a type of report, a type of like agency report that inspectors have to submit when they observe anything that's deemed to be objectionable. Well, the FDA inspectors observed a whole slew of problems at this plant. The Epoch Times writes this. The substance in question was used in Moderna's jab, mRNA 1273, the company's sole product available to the public. The FDA report dated September 21st described how the Norwood facility did not have adequately designed air handling systems to assure appropriate air quality in the clean room in which the mRNA drug substance is manufactured. At face value, it appears multiple controls designed to prevent contamination were deficient. Also in 2021, by the way, Japan suspended the use of 1.6 million doses of Moderna's jab after contaminants were found in some of the vials, but the FDA hasn't issued a single recall of Moderna's product here in the United States. In another story, a survey conducted by Syracuse University has found that only 3.4% of all journalists identified as Republicans, whereas 36.4% identify as Democrats. The first time they ran this survey, by the way, back in 1971, 25.7% of journalists said that they were Republicans. So over the last 50 years, that number's dropped from 36.4% to 3.4%. Yet the trend for journalists identifying as Democrats has stayed relatively stable around 35%. The Department of Homeland Security, the same entity who tried to establish the Ministry of Truth last year, has been funding a series of woke university programs going all the way back to 2020 at least. Thus far, they've spent millions of dollars that we know about on these programs, not to counter foreign terror groups, but instead to target Americans who fall into the category of what they call preppers and patriots. We saw them do it with moms and dads, for instance, parents at these school board meetings, label them extremists for questioning certain subjects that their kids were being taught. Look, we've known about them tagging keywords to identify Americans who are extremists in their words, using words like Confederate, libertarian, prepper, QAnon, even the word patriot is put into the extremist bucket. But now another program that they've been funding recently has to do with disrupting what they refer to as the manosphere, what used to be called the Red Pill movement, which encompasses people focused on countering feminist propaganda. Now, whether you agree with these people or not, me personally, I have no position on it one way or another, but what I do have a position on is the government trying to control what Americans can say, can think. You have the right to argue logically against feminism all you want. Well, not according to the DHS, you don't, who's been issuing grants under the TVPT program, or Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Program. What this money is going toward is to develop tools that identify this manosphere or red pill content online and work with social media companies to implement the redirect method. That's what they call it, where these online platforms will redirect social media and web traffic away from manosphere-related commentators. For some context, you could probably put Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh into this category. You've probably seen the Daily Wire's advertising for their movie What is a Woman? That type of content, those types of commentators are what we're talking about, and they do it through these third-party groups, whereas the government isn't directly attempting to censor Americans' First Amendment right. They have a middleman do it. We saw this with the Twitter files, DHS, the FBI, even the CIA had their hands so far up Twitter's ass, Twitter 1.0 that is. Elon's appeared to have cleaned house over there, but again, this is what happens when you have big government, a bureaucracy so large, it's fair to call it colossal. Using our own money, our own tax dollars against us, and it's all so deep, so crooked, with so many places to hide what they're doing. It's virtually impossible to find and expose it all. The best solution, really the only solution in my opinion, is just to go in and just gut the federal government. Like Vivek Ramaswamy proposes, fire 60% of these government jobs, shut down the FBI, refocus the entities to only work on actual crimes. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.